Warning: the Chaotic Culture Podcast is a program for mature audiences. The language and content presented in this podcast is of a mature nature that some audiences may not find suitable. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Embrace the culture, blaze the doja, grab your loved ones and bring them closer. Extra, extra, read the poster, the KKP is taking over. Sleeping on me, better smell the Folgers. I've been razor sharp since the Motorola. Off for O, like the cover Oprah. Popping bottles, feet all in the sofa. It's a celebration, though the times is hard. It's raining blessings, give it up to God. Chaotic culture, the greatest pod. With Ked the Pro, the one in charge. But it's a celebration, times is hard. It's raining blessings, give it up to God. Chaotic culture, the greatest pod. With Ked the Pro, the one in charge.
We're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture.
That was certainly an interesting beginning. Before we get started with this episode, ladies and gentlemen, I just got to give a shout out to my guests here, man, because they just had me laughing before we even got started. So we going to share some of the stuff that we laughed about, but I had to throw that out there. If it seems like I'm in a really good mood, it's because these guys right here definitely put me in a good mood to get started. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast, the pod where chaos rules and Black culture is embraced and elevated. This podcast will deep dive into modern Black culture and how millennials and Gen Z can navigate the crazy parts, from finances, music, Black business highlights, home ownership, HBCU, sports, Black nerddom, anime. We cover all that and everything in between. Live from the 7-5, I am the host and creator of the Chaotic Culture Podcast, your boy Ked the Pro, aka the Calculated Millennial, aka the Cutlass Diamond, aka Patty's favorite toxic adjacent king, aka don't be pushing on my buttons in my cutlass unless you cutting, aka your favorite Shadow Realm consultant. The 843 is me, but VA is where I stay. Always chaotic, never toxic, most of the time. Here again, once again, for another episode here, in a pretty good mood today. Today was really well, but we're gonna get into that in a little bit. So today I have some special guests with me. Just a little bit of a backstory here. The first time that I met one of our guests here is Harkness Hall. My HU days. This gentleman was one of the RAs as I was coming into the school. I learned a lot from him and learned a lot throughout my days into my freshman dorm. Needless to say, we've been pretty cool ever since. Every now and again throughout our Facebook days, we would always get into discussions, quote unquote, about his Duke Blue Devils and about my UNC Tar Heels. But most of the time, man, every time we got together, it was always a good time. Always had great moments with my guy. You know, he definitely helped me navigate college a little better as I matriculated at Hampton University. So I gotta give an introduction to my boy Malcolm Revere, aka Brother X of the Truth and Transparency Podcast. Y'all have heard me talk about them multiple times on my podcast, so now we finally got them in the building. So go ahead, Malcolm, say what's up, man.
All right, man, I'm going to treat you like I'm a guest pastor. I ain't going to be before you long, but for a little bit of time. I appreciate you running my stat line, my Hall of Fame credentials. But no, in all seriousness, man, it's Brother X, man, coming to you live from the Truth and Transparency Podcast. We bring you greetings and on our beloved podcasting platform. Just like shout out to my boy, man. Man, dog, it's been, now that I think about it, it's been 10 years plus of knowing each other, man. If I think about it correctly. Roughly.
Yeah, man. We met in 2009.
Because you came 09?
Yeah, so is it 13 years now that it's 2022? Just about 12 and a half.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
That it's crazy, man. Time's flying by, but thank you so much for having us on podcast. I promise if my mama listening or anybody else listening, or my co-host listening because she couldn't be with us, I promise I won't show my whole ass. I'll be a half ass sometimes. But thank you for having me on the show, man.
Hey man, a pleasure having you. Gotta bring in the other guest here from the Truth and Transparency podcast. I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself to everybody here. Also a fellow Hamptonian as well. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much. Number one, I gotta shout both of y'all out because y'all rep the freshman dorm. Harkness Hall HH2 smooth. It's your favorite Fed, Mr. Smith, also known as the Soundbite Poppy, and I'm just happy to be here and be in this good conversation with these two fellow Hamptonians.
Word, man.
Hold on, real quick. What you don't know is this man is a man of many nicknames.
Oh, God.
My man is AKA Doug Dimmadome. He is Fivers Goes West. He is Michael Blackson's long distance cousin.
Ah, damn.
My man got a hairline like Michael Smith and get headbutt like Tory Lane. All right, I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm about to say, Mark, you thought I wasn't gonna get you on someone else's show?
I couldn't even get one? I couldn't get one. You couldn't let one go, huh?
Oh no, I still got some in the chat if you want.
Oh no, I'm good.
Man said everybody gets one. he had to get his one in there. Okay. Dang, I thought I was the one that had the multiple nicknames on this podcast, but all right. Cool. So with that, we usually introduce this podcast by first asking how's everybody's mental health, making sure that everybody is in good shape, regardless whether it's physically, mentally, they got something going on at their job that they're working on or trying to get out of their job, whatever is on their mind at the moment that may be affecting their mental health, whether positively or negatively. We always speak on those things. So first and foremost, how is everybody?
Well, I'm blessed and highly favored of the Lord. But now, in all honesty, man, I'm in a better headspace, man. I was blessed to come to be able to get out of my second round with the corona. We was courting for a little bit, but I decided to break things off. So I'm in a better headspace because of that. I've finally been able to get back to work in the new year because I've been out since New Year's Eve, being able to work. But I'm just blessed to be able to be here amongst Black men, be able to fellowship and have good, funny, but insightful conversation, man. So I'm good.
Okay, that's always a good thing to hear, man. And of course, we appreciate that you were able to come through with that second round of corona. Yeah, leave her behind, man. You got an upcoming wife that you got to take care of, man. Don't let corona interrupt that.
No. We can't go steady, man. I can't have a girlfriend that got a girlfriend. It don't work like that.
Indeed. Indeed. And Mr. Smith, man, how's everything been going for you?
For me, it's like kind of I'm on both sides. Like you have your good days, you have your bad days. I mean, obviously, my brother here, brother X, him going through with COVID, hearing it hitting closer to home. So like my anxiety is starting to pick up a little bit more like it did a year and a half ago, but also kind of taking into what shout out to therapy and shout out to the little side projects that I'm doing to keep my mind away from the craziness that's the world. I'm doing all right. I'm trying to, coast through and at least start 2022 off better than the last 2 years, hopefully.
Hey, man, I 100% feel that. So that's good to hear that everybody is at least in a good headspace here. For me personally, I'm okay. I've been in worse situations, I will say. The new year has kind of started off not bad. It's kind of in the middle. Things happen. And sometimes seasonal depression can get to you, especially because it's cold up here. And I'm like, okay. And then on top of that, with the spreading of the Omicron Persei 8 variant, you are kind of, at least for me, it's like, dang, I really wanted to go here. And now I'm hesitant to go to certain places, whether it's even out to sit down at a bar again. So my anxiety has kind of picked up a little bit on that, but I'm still trying to remain calm and try to keep my head focused, and also just investing my time in, maintaining good health and of course this podcast. So I'm glad to hear that everybody has been doing well. So with that, I'm gonna get into just a couple of questions for you guys as far as your podcast itself. The one thing that I really wanted to start off with was, how did Truth and Transparency start? Like, what blossomed the idea for you guys to do this podcast?
Well, it was a long time ago, way back in time. No, all right, I'm gonna stop bullshit. The concept of the podcast, it came out of a very simple get together. So basically, myself and a lot of my friends, both here, I'm located in North Carolina. We have a fire pit at our house, and we used to have some of the most dope 2 a.m. conversations about just life, the culture, television, music, relationships, work, everything in between. And for myself, it was one of the things where I wanted to sit back and I'm like, yo, this would be really dope to take these conversations from our perspective and put it in the podcasting form. Because before that, I'm a self-proclaimed podcast junkie. I love everything from Serial to The Nod to everything in between. A bunch of different podcasts. Also, shout out the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Is another really dope one. But it was just one of those things where I was like, I wanted to give my take, and it was a passion project that grew into a fellowship that has taken our conversations and friendships that we have in so many different directions. Because I was a one-man show for a minute with myself and my fiance, the culture scientist. But then I think we started using the platform of Zoom and other ways to do Zoom calls right around when the Panorama at the Disco started. And we brought in Mr. Smith to be our sound engineer. And I'll let him kind of share his take on it.
Yeah, so when he was doing the show, I saw kind of how he was hosting and then bringing the material up, and it's a lot for anybody behind the scenes. It's a lot to do all that all at the same time. And so, as a big brother, we all went to Hampton. Brothers unite. If you need something, you get them. So I was like, hey, do you need help? Let me know what I can do. I think within the first episode of me helping him, he was like, yep, you're my sound engineer, and you're my sound engineer for life. You can't go anywhere. You have a lifelong contract. And they've said this at least 6 times. So I'm like, I guess I really can't go anywhere. But the conversations that we've went up to regarding, it could be anything from Black history to March Madness, of best 90s movies or something like that. But just to be able to have that moment that for however long the time is, it's almost similar to being on campus where you just have those conversations where you're just chilling back in the student center and just talking shit.
Nah, that's really real. That reminds me of all those conversations that we had in the student center and all the times that we spent in the game room, whether it was getting my ass kicked in pool or playing pool or just those are some really good memories, man. And I cherish those memories. And Hampton, I spent 6 years at Hampton getting 2 degrees, and those 6 years went by in a heartbeat. So I'm just sitting here like, damn, yo, we really, really had some memorable moments there. I will say that the way that you guys have, cultivated this podcast is nothing short of amazing. And I'm glad that you were able to find a sound engineer, Malcolm, to help you guys out, because trying to do all of this alone is it's a really big deal. And that's that's what I'm working on, is making sure that I can expand the podcast to where we can, the 3 of us who are together right now, can continue expanding and making sure that everything is in its right order. But still, I'm glad to hear that everything has come into fruition. So with that being said, as far as the podcast itself, what are some of you guys' favorite episodes or favorite segments or just favorite things about the podcast in general?
So there's one, I think it was the Karen Demick, where we took an episode to actually talk about both. It was back around the time when BET made the really dumb decision to broadcast or put out promotion for a Karen based movie. And it was like just kind of talking about that and just discussing that topic and all those things. You have other episodes like our March Madness episodes, where we literally did March Madness with 90s 90s songs, HBCU anthems, but in particular, the ones that are probably most near and dear to me are probably some of our bonus episodes. One that just came out last year, right around my birthday, was, for the listeners who don't know, I was born on September 11th. And I took the time with Mr. Smith during my birthday this past year to actually sit down and actually put to wax all of my feelings and my very interesting and unique relationship with my birthday ever since when that tragic event happened, to how I'm actually able to celebrate it now and find peace and find actual joy and like doing things for my birthday. That and just what we have our friends on, because our conversations wouldn't be nearly as funny if we didn't have our guests on. Shout out to Kelsey, Queen C, of course, the culture scientist, she co-hosting, but we had all of our friends there, and it was very therapeutic. It was like, it's kind of like the wind down, like with that on Insecure, where we just kind of just all got together. We talked about some craziness on social media, and we just shoot the shit.
Okay.
For me, there's two that stand out to me. Episode 25, where I think this was back in June of last year, or maybe a little bit before, maybe May. T-Pain was streaming the new Call of Duty, and there was like some white people on there that was calling him the N-word. And mind you, this is like the beta, like no one even has the game yet. This man goes off and murks everybody. And I remember just going on a rant, and Brother X just was like, oh, I'm gonna tee this up because I know he's got some stuff to say. But the top moment is episode 27. And that is because Brother X decides to be vulnerable with his listeners about his surgery, to just some minor surgery, nothing too crazy. And the fact that our shout out to Kelsey, he makes my job so much fun. But at one point, Brother X had to get a shot in his back to numb, just to make sure that everything is going clear. And Kelsey said, "Those are not the type of back shots that I'm accustomed to." And I tell you, I fell out laughing, editing it, laughing it. I just was like, what is happening right now? So
you gotta understand, like, there are so many times where you'll hear me in the background. If you listen just enough, you hear me in the background when my friends are going off. I'm like, I'm not respected on my own podcast. My friends do not love me. I invite my friends on. This is how they treat me, but it's all in love. It's all jokes. It's all hilariousness. And the sound bites that we have been able to get.
Oh my God. There
is one soundbite we were talking about, and we can move on from that after this, but it was like we were talking about the story when Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis came out about talking about how they didn't have their children take showers or baths regularly.
I remember that.
And we went on a tangent, and shout out to Kelsey again. He literally made the statement because he is very comfortable in who he is and what he wants and what he desires. So he's going to live his life. But he made sure he told everyone on the podcast, anyone who's listening, is one thing about him. First, he's a hoe. Secondly, he's a clean hoe.
And thirdly, he's a classy hoe. Heaux, classy.
Thank you. And it's just those moments where you just, oh my goodness. We could go on for days because like there's so many moments. A great way for listeners, if you want to get a feel for like some of these moments, we had an episode end of the year. It was our end of the year wrap up for 2021, where Mr. Smith took like our top 5 moments in there, and he just kind of cut it up, and he did his thing, man. I give him credit because it wasn't going to be me, because they would have gotten 5 episodes put together if I was the one still editing it. But it really just kind of gets you a feel for some of the jokes and laughter that we have on the podcast.
Sheesh, man. First and foremost, yeah, I respect you guys for being able to tell me like your favorite moments and favorite segments of that podcast. That's crazy. I don't know if my friends or at least my pod mates are going to ever out me like that. There were a couple times where I had to and I love my co-host Nasa. I love her to death, but I had to kind of out her on not out her more so, but when it came down to, because I don't know if you guys had listened to our Lil Wayne discography episode, but everybody in the building had loved the Carter 4, and I was the only one who was like, it's mid. So it
is.
I'm about to say, you're not wrong.
It is.
Okay, I'm glad I got some agreement here, because I was like, yo, how and I had to remember that there is a little bit of an age gap there. I'm like, okay, well, I kind of get it, but at the same time, I was just clowning the entire episode and she was just like, do you love me? Why are you attacking me? I'm sorry, I had to do it because that was one album that I just did not really care for out of all of his Carters. I'm like, look, I know people can have their opinions about like the Carter 5 and whatnot, but the Carter 5 I thought was okay, just a little long. Carter 4 was to me anyway.
I mean, they could have kept it. They could have kept it. I would have been fine. If you had a trilogy like most movies, I would have been okay and not needed the other two. That's
agreed.
Agreed. Yeah, like 1, 2, and 3 are phenomenal. 4 and 5 are hit and miss depending on who you ask. So,
I mean, they like Michael Jordan on the Wizards.
Well,
wow.
Yeah. Apparently, I had heard a rumor that he's coming out with a I'm Not a Human Being 3 and the Carter 6, and I don't know how I feel about that. But if they're anything like his last album, Funeral, I don't know. I love Weezy, but I don't know.
I think at this point, Lil Wayne, we love you. You will have one of the greatest mixtape runs that will never be replicated again. Let it go, man. Let it go.
Well,
like the lights on his head, he needs to let him go.
Yeah.
No words.
But
hey, look. In all honesty, we still have to do his mixtapes too, and that's going to be a challenge just because of how many mixtapes this man dropped. If you go all the way back to the Hot Boys days, like he was dropping mixtapes even then. So it was like, oh boy, we got a challenge ahead of us. But it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. And for those who are listening, of course, that episode will probably be more like maybe February, March. But I'll keep you guys tuned in on when that episode drops, so that way either you could participate or at least listen to it. But yeah, man, I think some of the greatest moments are us just talking about some of these artists' discography. We have what's called now our 8701 takes, because during the Usher discography, I loved Usher's 8701. I thought it deserved an A, and the other two did not. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's a hot take.
I mean, I say this not disrespectfully, but not knowing you well enough. This ain't my house, so I'm not gonna put my shoes up on the couch. But I'm saying, say what now? They say what?
Thank you. I'm like, look, whether you agree that it's S-worthy or not, that's one thing. But I'm like, I thought it at least deserved the A, because I liked a lot of the filler that was on the album, whereas Law did not and NASA did not. So I'm like, okay, I guess and unfortunately during that period I was overruled, so I had to give it the B that they requested. So I'm like, so that's why I came up with the grading system to kind of make it a little more fair. So I'll get into that, of course, when we drop another discography, which would be Neo's, which will be after this episode drops. So,
okay.
And Neo only has 7 projects that I'm grading. I'm not grading the Christmas album because I don't usually do holiday albums. That's just, I mean, it is what it is. It's catered to a holiday. I'm not going to sit there and try and grade it. I enjoyed listening to it. I'm just not going to grade it. So with that, one of our segments of this podcast is called Lit, Mid, or Miss. So we typically talk about a movie or a TV show that we saw that we either will grade on a scale. If it's lit, that could be anywhere between an 8 to a 10. Mid is in this case 5 to 7, and miss would be 4 and below. So if there are any movies or any TV shows that you guys have recently seen, just talk about it a little bit and tell us what you think of it. Was it lit? Was it okay? Or was it just absolute trash?
So I'll go first. And the Netflix series by Kevin Hart and Wesley Snipes, I think it's called True Story. I'm going to give it's like right in between. I would say if it's lit, it's an 8. Okay. It's good. it will keep you on your toes because you think you guessed it and then you don't. But because it's Kevin Hart, like you kind of still look at him as the funny man. So you're expecting the funny, but he's actually serious in this. So it kind of takes a little bit to get used to that. But overall, I felt that it was good. It was not long. Like the first episode is maybe an hour, and afterwards it's 35 minutes. So you're churning through the episode. Before you know it, you might binge watch it one day. You might get to 7 o'clock, like, oh crap, I'm on the season finale. It loops you in. So I personally thought that was a good show for me.
Okay. Brother X.
I about to say, so I like like the whole series, man. I'm an anime junkie, but I'm into action.
Sir.
So it's two of them. So I have, if I may, I have a little bit up on my heart. I want to testify. So first and foremost, I love the Kingsman movies. The Kingsman with it's Edgerton, right? I think it's like the main actor. But basically all the same, it's like phenomenal. It's kind of like British Secret Service, all this stuff. They had the third movie, but it's actually a prequel, kind of like the origin story of it. I saw it on Christmas, which tells you how much I've been out lately. But it was phenomenal. If you are a big fan of that series, it does so many callbacks to the first two movies where you're like, oh, I get where this is, and they weave it in a very organic way. So I'll definitely say it's lit. I'm gonna say two animes. One that I finished to completion, which was Legends of Arcadia. It's based off of a video game called League of Legends. Mm-hmm. That one is a 10. It's like, it is a masterpiece to me.
Wait, you talking about Arcane? League of Legends? Yeah. Okay, yes, absolute yes.
Because it's like, if you ever been played, like for our gamers, if you ever played a video game and you played a story mode and you always wanted more and you wanted like a whole universe, literally this show I think it's like 8 or 9 episodes, maybe 10 max, takes and expands a story mode that every gamer would want to see in every video game, but you know that you got to pay more money to get that, and you got to get the DLC. It's the whole thing. So that's another little one. And then lastly, I got to talk about the most popular anime right now before AOT came out is Demon Slayer.
Yes, sir.
I have a man crush on well-animated anime. Like you gonna get me to fangirl, like, all that. I need it in my life. So that's pretty lit as well. And then I'm just big into K-dramas. That's me. I am a junkie for it. Like all the subtitles, I'm sure some of them aren't correct, but we're not gonna talk about that. But yeah, man, those are all the things I would really find lit to me right now, man.
Okay. Definitely shout out to that last episode of Demon Slayer. I know by the time this episode drops, another one will have dropped. But yeah, that episode with the fight between Redacted, and then Redacted comes in at the very end. For those who don't want spoilers. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that sequence, and I read the manga, though I don't read it like at the pace where I'm finished yet, but I like to like read along just so I can see what the next thing is. Because I mean, I'm an anime and manga head as myself, so I'm just like, okay, I can't wait to see the rest of this fight being animated because it's about to get crazy. So I am definitely looking forward to that. I will sing Arcane's praises throughout this entire podcast. Arcane as a video game story literally blew me out of the water. Because for those who know that I love Mortal Kombat, but every movie that I've seen that involves Mortal Kombat has been more so disappointing than others. There are certain movies like the original Mortal Kombat movie in '95 that you kind of love, but at the same time, it's like it's a bad movie, but you still love it because it's a classic. And then you got the sequel after that, which was absolute garbage. And then you had
what sequel like that? It doesn't.
Exactly. We don't talk about that movie. We don't talk about it. It does not exist. So with the 2021 reboot, I enjoyed at least the fatalities of it, but the story was trash. And then of course the animated movies, which I liked, Scorpion's Revenge, and then I watched Battle of the Realms and was thoroughly disappointed once again. So needless to say, when I saw Arcane, I was blown out of the water, and I completely love that. And I wish more video games would put that into their, stories as far as shows, because if you do that, then your audience is going to love it. Like if you just put some tender love and care into these storylines, we're going to follow along and we're going to absolutely enjoy it. Sonic the Hedgehog was probably like one of the first video game movies that I had seen in a while that I actually enjoyed. It wasn't the story wasn't crazy or anything like that, and it wasn't to the level where I think Arcane is, but Sonic the Hedgehog at least was an enjoyable movie that I didn't have to come onto this podcast and trash. So with that in mind, what I saw this past weekend, I finished a Chinese donghua, or their version of anime called Scissor 7 on Netflix. It's pretty good. I definitely would give it a low end lit. Because it really starts out very hilarious and very satirical, and then as the seasons go along, it starts to get dark and kind of serious. So I still enjoyed watching it. If you have not looked up Scissor 7, definitely look it up. Again, like the first season and the first half of season 2 are all very like hilarious. But as you get into season 3, you start to see the darker elements of this show, and you'll really appreciate it for what it is. The next one that I saw was Encanto. I did watch the Disney movie because I'm still a Disney head here, and I will say that the storyline itself was pretty decent, but the music is what really made that movie what it was. Like the music was absolutely phenomenal, and for those who don't know, of course, the music was Lin-Manuel Miranda. So if you know who that is, obviously, as crazy as that man is a genius when it comes to music. So that made the movie really, really phenomenal. I definitely have to give Encanto a 9 on the lit scale. It is really enjoyable watch. If you have children, if you have baby cousins, definitely check it out if you haven't already. It is streaming on Disney Plus. You will enjoy the story. You will really enjoy the music, and overall the plot of the story itself. There are some parts that might be a little upsetting, it might be triggering depending on your family dynamic, but I think overall you will enjoy it. And I also appreciate Encanto for being able to encompass the different shades of Hispanic people. So that is what really stood out to me as well. So shout out to Disney for that one. So with that, I am going to do a quick business highlight before I get into the next topic and then our main topic. So real quick, I got a shout out to my girl, Naima Iman, the owner and founder of Cream Cosmetics. I have to talk about her really quick just so that you guys can check her out. For those who are in the 757 area, Miss Naima is hosting a quick pop-up brunch Sunday, January 30th. And I had some just like that. I lost the profile, and I hate when I do that, but let me go ahead and pull her back up so that way I'm able to fully get the details of this pop-up brunch that is happening on Sunday, if her story ever gets to it, because she drops a lot of stories on her Instagram. So with that, if you haven't checked it out, she will be hosting it at MLH Boutique off Big Bethel in the 757 area from 2:30 to 6 p.m. Sunday, January 30th. Food and drinks will be provided. I can't believe I said cosmetics. She owns a cosmetic company, so that's probably why. But still, food and drinks will be supplied. All vendors who wish to participate, there is a $65 fee. Definitely come check her out. Come thrive with young Black professionals. Get a chance to experience a brunch hosted by go-getting Black women. And yeah, that's really all that I can say. If you want to check her out, definitely be sure that you go to www.nudesbycream.com. And that's cream spelled CREME. If you want to check out her products. Also, if you are interested, definitely follow her on Instagram at Naima_Iman. That's NAEEMA_IMAN. So with that out of the way, so I didn't know if anybody had saw, but we were talking about this on Twitter, of course, we were discussing the fact that young Dolph's murderers were apprehended, arrested, and are, of course, being held now and detained. And the reason I wanted to talk about this real quick is just because obviously it might have been a different time at Hampton. I don't know if young Dolph was as popular when we were in school. I think it was like almost immediately after or at least immediately after my undergrad, that Dolph started to like really pick up around HU. But Dolph in itself has been like a part of that Hampton culture. And so I thought it would, for us, it would be best that we talk about it just a little bit, because a lot of us were discussing, if they found his killers, what would happen? Because we were wondering, like, is the feds gonna find them first, or is the ops gonna find them first? And surely enough, the feds were able to locate them and find them. But I just wanted to at least discuss that portion of what everybody thought about that entire situation.
First and foremost, man, I know they're, like you said, like the impact may not hit the same, but ultimately, to me, the next thing that reminds me of was the whole situation with Crenshaw.
Nipsey Hussle.
Nipsey Hussle. Yes, thank you. I don't know why that name escaped me. I was thinking about it before, but it's just one of those things where it's just like you got these young cats, relatively speaking. I'm saying young, like they're not either our age or a little bit older, but young in a relative sense in the rap game or as just human beings, period. And for their lives to be taken so immediately, and it's just like for what? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, he initially was just out, just minding his own business, going to get donuts, right? If I'm wrong,
if you talk about Dolph, he was getting cookies.
Cookies. I'm sorry, cookies. Some type of treat. I mean, I myself am I'm a connoisseur of treats myself, so I mean, I understand that. Like, I roll down to the nice Krispy Kreme, give me a nice 12 dozen glaze of originals. But I mean, cool. Nobody judging. But honestly, man, it's just crazy because, for us, like, before a lot of their social media is like that word of mouth traveled faster than any car, any plane, any bullet, anything. And I am genuinely surprised because a lot of times if we tell Black Twitter to go find something, they will have the receipts. It is like a Black woman with a plan. You are not going to stop them.
Oh my God.
So I'm glad that they detained them, but it's like, dog, why why do this, man? Like, what has to go through your mind that tells you that this is okay, and to think you're actually going to get away with it? Like, you act without thought, which is insanity to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my take.
For me, I'm looking at it like Dolph was in his hometown getting chocolate chip cookies, and he got murdered by a 23-year-old. What goes through your mind at 23 to say this megastar, this hood classic star, I should say, or someone that's really up and coming, I'm gonna take his life today, and I'm gonna take his life in one of the places that we know he frequents, and he's even shouted them out. Like, I'm not gonna say the man had a perfect track record, but he at least was uplifted the community in ways that other people didn't see. And so I agree with Brother X. I'm surprised that Black Twitter didn't find him before the feds did. But I think he's happy Black Twitter didn't find him before the feds did. Because you would have found what remained of him, but not him.
Oh, yeah, no, my man was going to get sent to the upper room if Black Twitter found him.
Oh, absolutely.
or better yet, shout out to Chisel Adonis. He's going to be sent to the Shadow Realm expeditiously.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm glad we got another Chisel Adonis fan in the building.
Oh, yeah, no. We are patrons.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
This page.
Yeah, I'm definitely about to become a Patreon subscriber to him because I've been listening to him since I first saw one of his videos on Facebook years back. I'm like, yo, this dude is hilarious. So yeah, I'm definitely glad to hear that. But back to the subject. As you said, he's probably okay. Both of them are probably, can breathe easy because as you said, the feds found them first and not the remnants of Black Twitter or any of the other ops, because if they had found him first, he definitely was getting sent to the upper room or to the lower room, depending on, what his thought process is. I ain't gonna get into all of that, but still, just at that age to say that you're gonna, take this man's life in broad daylight to a black owned establishment that he frequents and gives his support to is kind of wild. And granted, yes, as we say, we know that Dolph does not have didn't have the best track record, but at the same time, the man did so much for the community of Memphis, whether it was volunteering for his school or coming to perform for his old high school, or just supporting them in other ways, or helping pass out turkeys at Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like, the man was literally invested in the Memphis community, and just to see that taken away from him for who knows what reason is idiotic and just crazy to think about. And I guess from the Twitter rumors and whatnot, this same dude, I guess, was in his circle, or at least a part of his circle. I don't know. Or I don't know if he was an ops that it happened to infiltrate. I don't know. But still, it's just really crazy to see that this man decided, hey, I'm going to take his life in broad daylight, and ain't nobody about to find out, what's about to happen, and I'm about to get paid to do this. Never mind that, moments after the murder, they didn't already got the serial number on the car. Not to mention, like, there's cameras all over the place. Like, some people really don't think before they act. And I, as y'all said, man, I don't know what to really think of it other than, thankfully they found this man, and of course he's going to stand trial for it. But to take someone who is as beloved as Dolph away, they're lucky that they were able to turn themselves in. That's all I can say about that.
I agree. I just like the main thing that you take away from this is what we've been taught from like younger age. Think before you even try to act on it. Because again, if you think through it, if something doesn't go right, at least you thought it and it didn't happen in real life. Whereas this man did that. Dolph cannot come back. He can't be, just to take, I'm not as big of an anime head as you guys, but I have a little bit of something. He can't be like Goku and wait for the 7 Dragon Balls, get wished back, and then run back through Snake Way. No, he's gone. Like, he's not coming back. So that's something that you want to live with and you young. It'd be different if, I'm not excusing it, but it'd be different if you were 70 and be like, oh, I'm on my way out anyway. But dude, you 23. Like, you had a whole lot of life, and now you probably gonna get life for this. And was it worth it?
He ain't seen
last that long,
not seen the light of day again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's just really unfortunate, because it's just like, we as a Black community, to take it to a larger realm, is that we as a community, we live past the life of our heroes or our figures or our idols or people that we look to. In a lot of cases, they're either taken really young, or they're taken before they're able to see in their prime. It's a little different circumstances, but for me, the death of someone in our African American community that hit me the hardest, you can probably see it for those who aren't watching the video, is that Chadwick Boseman, that hit different. And it's so hard, because it's like, you start thinking, it's like, damn, you really realize how short of a life a person has, because in the grand scheme of things, I'm 31. I have literally lived long enough for the earth to rotate around the sun only 31 times. That's crazy. If you really think about it. Yeah. And it's just like, for to take someone's life away, because you don't know what could have happened. Young Dolph could have gone on to be the most well-known rapper of all time, had influence on music that would have had life years or generations of impact. But we'll never know, because he's gone. And you have to live with that. Young Dolph has children, correct?
Yes. So
you took a child's father away, giving that child trauma that they will be either have repressed, and if they're not blessed to be able to have the therapy and all the coaching and everything, the life skills that, oh my goodness, she could have actually learned from her father if she had him, that you chose to dictate how much of an impact that's going to have on other people. So I'm glad they caught him, but it just sucks to see.
And just to finish off, just like you said, the death that hit you the hardest was Chadwick. As a basketball fan, Kobe was mine, because I was ready to see this man go to the Hall of Fame. I was ready to like to this day, it still doesn't feel real sometimes. I'm like, I should be looking up on YouTube his Hall of Fame speech. I can't find, oh, right, he's not here. So for those fans who follow Young Dolph, like even like we said, I mean, granted, he wasn't, I remember his music just started coming out when I was a senior. So I was a little bit removed by the time it really started hitting, but I heard his name go through the waves. So I knew he was making tracks. And so just the same way with Nipsey, what their futures could have been and how they're upbringing their communities. And now it's being snatched for what? Petty stuff? It's not cool.
Yeah, man. And it's sad that in the hip hop realm, man, a lot of our heroes don't really have longevity, and that's crazy because a lot of folk in those situations don't make it to C25. The ones that do C25 don't see 30. The ones who see 30 don't see 40, and then the ones who see 40 don't see 65 and up. It's just so crazy, and sometimes it may not even be because of banging. It just could be because of health reasons. If we look at Biz Markie, man, Biz Markie didn't make it to 60 because of health issues. You've got, as we've said, Nipsey got killed at 33. Dolph got killed at 36. It's unfathomable that we live in this kind of time period where some of our music heroes don't really get to see longevity and don't really get to live to be old men. DMX gone at 50. It's just astonishing. But with that in mind, as y'all said, like those deaths, each of those deaths that y'all told me about that y'all just said actually hit me in different ways. Like Kobe, I'll be the first to admit I was a big Kobe hater, not because I hated his game. He was one of those people. I'm just like, dang it, man. You know what? He is so great, but man, I can't stand him. I was one of those. I was definitely one of those people. I was like, yo, Kobe is great, but boy, I cannot stand him. But then as a player anyway, now as a person, all the stuff that he was doing outside of that, especially after he retired and the things that he was doing for his daughter's team, man, I love that. I was like, yo, I'm a new fan of Kobe. And then that happened, and it is so heart-wrenching. And then me being an actor myself, when Chadwick died, obviously, for those who don't know, I did a special episode, a bonus episode in season 1 about Chadwick Boseman's passing. I cried. I literally broke down into tears like I knew this dude, knowing good and well that I did not know Chadwick, but still, it hurt. So, yeah, man, and that's something that we just have to continue to be cognizant of while we are Black men in this community, is just making sure that we are aware of our surroundings, but also aware of our physical and mental health as well. So I will always try to uplift us and making sure that we know what the next steps are as far as our health is concerned, to be sure that we are protecting ourselves and to make sure that we can live long lives. So that way our children, if we have children, can see us grow old. And so that way we can pass these lessons on to them. So that way, when they're adults, they know what to do for their generation and generations to come. So yeah, it's a really sad situation with this Dolph situation, but I'm glad that at least we know that justice will be served. At least in this case. So speaking of Black men, we got to get to at least the main topic of today. And something that I've noticed is, of course, the now, I will say that the tide has been turned against Black men who do podcasts. And I'm not saying that in a disparaging way. I'm saying that because there are too many Black men out there who have decided to have podcasts and have decided to continue the misogynistic and toxic masculinity trends that we've had in our community. And it seems that it's always aimed at Black women. And that's a part of the reason why Black women have kind of turned against us on Twitter. I've seen too many tweets that said, Black men should go to therapy. Instead, they've gotten a podcast. Black men need to be stopped on their podcast journeys. And far be it from me to stop anybody who wants to content create. If you want to create your podcast, by all means do that, but make sure that that is productive and that you're not disparaging anybody on it. The Fresh and Fit is a perfect example of this, because you got two of these gentlemen out here who are saying disparaging comments against Black women just for a quick buck and a hot take, so that way they can get whatever clout that they were seeking. And that I feel as though I'm hoping that it doesn't become a main problem within our community, but I am starting to see cracks in this foundation on Twitter because, you know, your podcast will be successful by the word of a Black woman, whether it is a good word or a bad word. And I'm just hoping that those who continue to attack Black women will not get to receive the success that they're craving for. But I'm hoping that the blowback doesn't come off against, you know, podcasters like ourselves who will, you know, talk, you know, crazy stories or talk about certain subjects. But at the end of the day, we'll always continue to uplift our community. And I'm hoping that blowback doesn't come back on us because we're out here doing the Lord's work. But then you got bozos out there who are, you know, doing that devil work and continuing to put a podcast like us in a bad light. So any comments on that?
As someone who, as like myself and Mr. Smith are both podcast junkies, and we just kind of listen to it, like there's a lot of stuff that we kind of do a deep dive on. Is just like what is like the source or the beginning of it, because it's like I think we talked about it a little bit before the show. Is that we just like why are like certain things being done? Like your affinity to want to be famous or to you think because you've seen it unfortunately in a lot of success models that in order for you to be successful, you believe that you have to sacrifice a vital part of who you are or the foundation of every Black man. Because in my mind, in every good and the best situation possible, every Black man has a foundation from a Black woman. We came from a Black woman and we have that foundation. So it is vital to who we are. And they are our first teachers. In a lot of cases, our fathers are our first example of how to be a man in some cases, but our first teacher on how to understand the world and who we spend the most time with is a Black woman. So for you to say that and to degrade them for whatever reason, whether it is personal experience, which again, if you're going to do that, acknowledge it as that, but you don't have to do it in a derogatory term. I can say I don't like blue cheese. That don't mean that I got to trash it. I choose to because it's funny. But that's beside the point. But it's ultimately it's like you have to understand is like there are podcasts that have over 1 million plays, 1 million subscribers, all these things, and you don't have to do that. It's almost like to take it quickly to another realm. It's almost like you see like some African American people or people of color who will literally put down another person or group of color in order to have what's called the affinity or the closeness to whiteness in a sense. And when you do that, it's like, oh, you as an up-and-coming podcast are trying to put down Black women in this situation in order to make you akin to what you think is success, which ultimately it says more about you not having your own individuality, because the best thing about any podcast is not the numbers or anything else, or it's like the cool concept. It is how genuine your conversations are to who you are. The reason why I enjoy doing this podcast is not because I get to shoot the shit with my friends, but it's we have genuine conversations, and the places that they can go have nothing to do about, oh, Black women are this or oh, Black men are that. We may have discussions, but we always talk about, one of the phrases we use all the time is two things can be right at the same time. And it is okay to educate yourself and to be able to grow when you have new information, but to make generalizations. We talk about an episode that's coming out is like, if you say something, especially on the internet or social media, that is there forever, forever. Shout out to Sandlot. Like you got to understand, like it's going to be there. So you just got to recognize if you're going to say that, be able to stand behind it, because 9 times out of 10, if you're doing it for clout or trying to be like someone else, those people who do that, they're going to stand behind it a lot stronger than you are, because that's who they genuinely are, and not just for clout. But that's just me.
So for me, I'm going to put it out there. Black women make the world go round. Yep. Black women make the elections finish. Yep. Black women are going to be the one that when you don't think you can do it, they will drag your ass to the finish line and say, I already know you can do it before I even got with you. Come on, let's go. And you can't say nothing because you're like, all right. So for you to say, Black women is not my thing, I'm not a Knight Rider. First of all, what the hell does that even mean? If you're saying Knight Rider from a colorist standpoint, what the hell is wrong with you?
Like,
Like,
you talking like you from the 1800s.
I mean, I'm just
like
saying.
you got a bag of hooch in the back. What you doing?
So, and then, so again, you got to also think about it from both your own personal issues, as in maybe this is therapy coming out of me now, your own personal issues, as well as from a marketing standpoint. For your own personal issues, what did you deal with in your life to where you have this hatred? Because I'm gonna call it, you really sound like you got hatred of black women. And then secondly, remember who your listening audience is. You are not, based on your color, you are not those type of people that's the Tucker Carlsons and got the Fox 5 News crowd. Your crowd is usually those people of color. If I may quote Jay-Z, light nigga, dark nigga, faux nigga, real nigga, rich nigga, po nigga, house nigga, field nigga, still nigga. You're still that. So like, you make it make sense, right? So at the end of the day, you like you just said, you're doing this for a hot take. But when that money runs out, that soundbite is going to be on the internet forever. Word to Cardi B. What you gonna do? You can't be like these people that's like, oh, well, back then I had a strong mindset and I'm looking at the error in my ways. That ain't gonna change that. You don't get that opportunity. So just as we stated with the young Dolph, think again, think a third time before you actually act on what you say.
Or not, or it's crazy. You don't have to say it.
Yep.
Like there's no one putting a gun to your head. You could be quiet. Dog, the most of the time where I learn the most and where I shut the hell up and create space for other people to speak. One of the best episodes we had on our podcast, one of the ones I enjoyed, where we had all women, black women, talk about their experience of being black women and allowing them to have the space to talk. And if you are so jaded in your thinking, it makes me really question whether or not you're actually having these conversations with black women, because I make a rule of thumb with a lot of stuff that I say on the podcast. If I wouldn't say this content in front of the people who is my audience or my core audience, then am I being really authentic in what I'm talking about? Or am I just putting on a show because I'm trying to be like Everyday Struggle or whatever other podcast? Like, I have to be authentic to who I am, because at the end of the day, I have to attest and own up to it. Because if a black woman comes up to you and pulls your card, what you gonna say? Oh, that's just entertainment. All right, she gonna entertain you while she dragging you across the street on social media.
Well, hey, yo, that is an excellent point. Not everything requires a hot take. Not everything requires you to speak on it. And that might be why we named this episode Knowing When to Shut the Hell Up Part 2. Because literally that's the last episode that we had. So this might be the second part of that. Just like sometimes you just gotta know when to be quiet. And as y'all have pointed out, I kind of do the same thing. I genuinely think about, my audience, and am I being authentic? Should I say this? What is really going to matter? And I'm not just doing this just for likes or listens or anything like that. I'm doing this because I genuinely want to have these conversations with people in my community, and how we can, again, navigate this chaotic culture that we find ourselves in, regardless if it's from a music standpoint, regardless if it's just from a lifestyle standpoint. But it seems that you still have jokers out there who are willing to say any and everything just for a quick like or a quick retweet or a quick share, something that will capture the eyes of millions of people, regardless of if it is something that is good or if it is negative. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be negative. So I'm hoping that, we as podcasters will continue to be wise and avoiding those kinds of things and avoiding those kinds of trends. Like, I ain't doing this, to follow a trend and whatnot. I want to genuinely grow my product so that way we can have these conversations about what our next steps are to thrive in this community. I ain't trying to sit here and disparage nobody about their relationship status or about, what interests that they like and what interests that I like and dislike. And I ain't about to sit here and try to attack no black woman. That's just me. I might, if I'm friendly with you and we are on that level, I might joke with you, but I ain't gonna never disrespect you. So there's that. With that, I do have to ask, do you think
or in your experience, do you think that a lot of Black podcasts are, have trended more towards talking about relationships? And do you think they could find better things to talk about? Like, do you think that there is a growing trend of Black podcasts that are like, oh, we're going to sit here and just talk about, our relationships and relationship status and how Black men should do this or how Black women should act like that? Do you think that there's a growing trend in that direction that needs to stop? Or what say you?
It's funny that you say that because obviously I've kind of shared already on the episode that this podcast that I do it with my fiance. And one of the things that when I was in its infant stages before I even ever created an episode, I told her, and then I told Mr. Smith when he came on, I'm like, I never wanted this, my passion project, to ever become another couple's podcast. Where we talk about relationships and we try to become the Derek Jacksons of the world or whatever his name is.
You got it right.
As we like to talk about it on our show, call him the relationship hotel. You can use that.
He really was
fitting, very fitting.
And in my mind, I'm just like, I think it's, in a sense, it's low hanging fruit because as we are the generation of podcasters, millennials and is it Gen Z? I try not to use the terminology.
You have it right, Gen Z.
Ultimately, I think is that we're in a space where we're trying to still develop and figure out who we are. We're not children or youth anymore, where we're just trying to figure out the world, find our interests or likes. And we're not in like our 40s or 50s where we've kind of figured out our career. We know who we are. We've either started a family, if that's something you choose to do, or found our life partner, whatever the case that may be, or you know what your purpose in life is in order to leave this earth in a better place, hopefully. So what happens is for us, one of the things, if it's not about pop culture or entertainment, it's not about music, it's not about fitness, what else is important to us at this age is our relationships, because we've been conditioned as children, as we were raised, that, oh, you're going to go to school, you're going to get a degree, you're going to get a degree because you want to find a partner, you want to be able to get married and have children. And this whole fantasy, and we talk about it sometimes, like we love the 90s sitcoms, but in a way, it almost gave us a false narrative of what life in our 30s was at. The prime example, Insecure. It didn't truly hit me that a lot of what was going on in the show was the time between they were 29, like their late 20s, early 30s. And for them, they're still, you see, they were even on big time, big love. You had Molly in the law firm, but one of the biggest challenges that she had in her life was figuring out how to have a healthy relationship. So for people who see that, that's where their focus may go. Whereas if we expand the table and broaden our horizons, I'm like, no, there's more to us than just relationships. So I think to tie everything back in, it's just like, I think it just really has to do with it's easy because you can talk about it's like the last person. Like I can get clicks saying Black women ain't shit for X, Y, and Z. Although I don't believe that, I know it's going to get clicks because that's how social media works. And if I do that, I'm no better than the Fresh and Fit podcast.
Well,
that's real.
For me, so like on One Piece, I do feel like they're starting to become, or podcasts can slowly go towards that realm where they're shaming Black women because they're saying, oh, well, this person's doing it and they're getting all these clicks and these views and these likes and they're getting these endorsements or whatever. Let me do the same thing so I can get some money. But you two, as hosts, said it best. You don't do it for the likes. You don't do it for the retweets. I mean, if you could just have the same listeners you've had all the time, you'd be fine. But you want to have these conversations as far as how to uplift your community and uplift who you are. And so with that kind of brings into the mindset of those that listen to it. So if you and I want to make sure that I don't, talk down on anybody or any listeners like that. But for those that might subscribe to the Fresh and Fit podcast, you kind of know what you're getting. You kind of know that there's going to be some back talk on Black women of any shape or size, whatever. And majority of it is BS. Just call it what it is. The exact same way I kind of look at Love and Hip Hop. We all know it's BS. Every time you watch Love and Hip Hop, what they always be saying? I'm in the studio. I'm making music. I'm going to be on my grind. This is going to be my year. Name 5 radio hits they had in last year. If they in the studio that much. If they crank it out as much as they should be, there should be at least 3 radio hits in the year. You hear J. Cole get one, he got 4 before his album even drops out. So, it's
no
all
feature. Oh, I'm sorry.
Stand down, Stan.
I was gonna say, listeners, I'm sorry. I am North Carolina born and bred. I am a J. Cole stan. I would not appreciate any J. Cole slander in front of me. If you say behind my back, I can't do nothing. But I'm sorry. I digress. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. I interrupted.
Anywho, but no. So with that, it goes to the mindset of if that's what you're looking for, you're gonna find it, right? But that's such a narrow and minimalistic mindset to where it's like, oh, I'm gonna bash this person. You don't know that Black women are more doctors, lawyers, Fortune 500 company businesswomen. I'm sure within the next 15, 20 years, that schematic of white people and Black women is going to flip. And then it's going to be what you're going to say now, right? So to finish off, I don't understand why, because unless someone did something specifically to you, okay, you might be able to get away with that. Or like the host said, if y'all close to the point where y'all can joke on each other, cool. But you talking about, oh, I'm not a night rider, or I'm not in a Black woman like that. Why do you have to? That's the main thing. Why do you have to talk down to them in order to make your point across? You can make your point without you having to say that. You could have just been like, hey, I'm not really in a Black woman. That's it. You don't have to say anything else. Now, I'm gonna call you an idiot because Black women are the most majestic people in the world. But
Say that.
I'm just saying. Listen. Last thing. Look at Regina. Is it Hall? Yeah. Look at Regina Hall at 50. And she looked like she's 35. Look at Melissa Ford. She looked like she's in her 20s. Now look at the Olsen twins. They're in their 30s and they look like they're 60. That's all I got to say.
They built like apricots. I'm gonna call what it is. They built like the back of their hand.
I'm done.
Hey, speaking of which, I had heard that Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet have divorced. So Lisa Bonet, I know that she should be approaching 60 now almost, but still. I'm just throwing it out there.
I volunteer as tribute. I will stand in line. And listeners, you wonder what my fiance may say. She knows what I feel about her. We have plenty of conversations about this. So
I'm just to show my love and appreciation. If for whatever reason Lisa Bonet is not available, if Zoe Kravitz, her daughter, I'm just saying that is still one of my crushes as well. Just saying, I love them both. Beautiful. That's all I'm saying.
And to that point, listen, Nia Long, listen. If you want somebody out there from Hampton, I am here. I will make sure you ain't got to. I'll rub your feet, girl. Just let me. All right, let me stop. I'm gonna be simple around this.
I'm gonna throw some gunshots on this. There's gonna be a lot of gunshots in here.
But the Lord said you must speak what you desire, what your heart's desires are. See, I was about to say.
Hey.
Get the preacher, man. I'm ready. My Bible is open and ready, sir.
How about I say? You see, you have not because you ask not. And Lord, we come before you right now on behalf of this podcast, asking that we get the desires of our heart as long as we are true to your word. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
All right. Getting back to our regular scheduled program.
Yes. But in any case, I will say for the general audience, of course, if you're looking for relationship podcasts, I mean, if that is what you are akin to, if that is something that you are willing to listen to, then by all means, just be sure that you find the right podcast for you that will not degrade the other sex. At any point in time, people can have preferences, but you don't have to find something that is going to slander another sex or another race. In my opinion, and I said this on the last episode, in my honest opinion, if you're going to find a relationship podcast, make sure it is from somebody who is a trained professional in that field. If not, I mean, that's perfectly fine, because still the conversations about relationships still do need to be had within the Black community. But as we have talked about just previously, it is such a it has been ingrained in our
system, and it has been ingrained in our lifestyles to always talk about these kinds of conversations, especially when you get into a close-knit circle, and of course you find out certain things that certain people are doing and so on and so forth, and it just creates a toxic environment. So because of that, I highly suggest, if you are looking for a relationship podcast, make sure that you are doing your research and finding some of the right ones. I will say a positive Black male relationship podcast that you can listen to is Let's Talk Bruh. If you haven't heard about it, definitely check it out. It is from another Hamptonian, my boy Jeremy. Definitely check him out on all streaming platforms. And that is what I call the perfect example of healthy Black men talking about building healthy relationships. That is something that I believe is a great podcast to get into if you have not gotten into it. So with that in mind, I also think that there are a lot of Black creators out there who will continue to create for their own, whatever they are akin to. And I also think that we as a community should get into more podcasts that are not focused just on Black relationships. They could be focused on whether it's anime, because as y'all know, for those who listen, I always will sing the praises of 3 anime podcasts that I'm a Patreon subscriber to, as well as some others that I also pull up on. I also think that some people should get into, some comic books, some video game anime, some video game podcasts. I also think maybe some sports podcasts. I know that, sports is common in the Black community, but definitely get into those. There are many things out there for you to enjoy without having to necessarily go into the same Black tropes that we deal with every single time. So just for my audience, just bear that in mind. That is my opinion. I'm not a professional at any point in time. And yes, there will be episodes where we talk about relationships, but it's not going to be in the literal sense. We'll have those conversations. We ain't gonna have them often either. Because unfortunately, having healthy Black relationships is a part of this chaotic culture. That being said, there are plenty of other things that we can get into. And one thing that I want to continue to highlight is, Black professionals, Black creatives, and just about anything else Black. So that's all I got to say on that. Any other comments?
Real quick, I just want to shout out, since we're on the subject of Black podcasting. One, for my anime nerds, there's a podcast called Anime Shun. That's anime SHUN.
I heard about that
podcast. Yeah, they talk about all anime shows. Really dope conversations. Hilarious. It's hosted by Keenan Baker. One of the funniest dudes that I've watched on internet comedy. You got another one in Coolest Nerd Ever. Unfiltered the podcast. You have for colored nerds. You have the Nod. You have me at Black, and another one that I love that I think that kind of it has to do with is Jesus and Jollof, which is another phenomenal one that they had a lot of, I think it's ended, but it has a lot of great episodes. But definitely check that out and just tap into it, because I know that we grow not only by word of mouth, but also by social media. But it takes nothing. If you ever want to help, I know people say it all the time, if you ever want to help grow a podcast, one of the biggest things I always tell people is share it with somebody who isn't within your circle of friends, or share it with other people. If I ask 10 friends to share it with 5 other people, look at the numbers. I'm not a mathematician. I'm a teacher. We're not gonna go into what teacher, but I'm a teacher. But all the same, but just share and understand that when you find something genuine that speaks to your spirit, I liken it to for those who are church folk. I liken it to finding a church home where you feel like you are being fed, whether it is spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. What is it that you need in that time to help grow you, to get you to that next level, who you want to be? Seek that out. If you want to know, ask questions. I know people all the time talk about, yo, I need something to watch on Netflix, or yo, I need a new show to binge. Start asking the question of yo, I need some podcasts that are about X, Y, and Z that are Black inspired or Black content creators, because you'd be surprised. There is so many. The person that I look to who inspired me to do a podcast It's a gentleman by the name of Greg E. Hill. He is the podcaster on the Minority Trailblazer podcast. He is phenomenal. Like, he is where I want to be with my podcasting if I am blessed to be able to take it that far. So really just tap into that. We love it. It is genuine content. Most of us are doing it because we love what we're talking about and discussing. It's not to get a check, although we are looking for donations and sponsors to help these things grow, man, because it's not easy, man, because just like y'all, we got to work. We got to eat. I got a whole fiance I got to feed. That's the whole thing. So just really tap into that, man. I know I can be a little long-winded, but it is what it is. Hey, I'm a podcaster.
Hey, yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Smith, you got any more comments, sir?
Number one, Brother X, you a fool. That's all I gotta say. You a daggone fool.
I'm me 100%.
Nah, and then secondly, like you guys said, just I think it's just good to go into podcasts or anything, any of the media that you consume, whether it's TV, whether it's books, whether it's podcasts or audio or whatever. We all are gonna have our moments where we can be a little ratchet, and rightfully so. Got to be able to express it some way. Might throw a little Meg in there, might throw a little Cardi. But at the same time, you also want to get stuff in that's going to expand your mind and help you grow. Because the main thing that Insecure kind of taught us was growth. So, like me and Brother X will listen to podcasts that kind of push our mind towards things that we might not have been taught growing up, stocks and dividends, and portfolios, and then, how do people think in this way and how can you expand? Like that type of stuff to where you can grow in a better esteem. Now, I would say to continue to push towards that. And by doing that, you not only will look at this incident with fresh and fit and be like, oh, that's crazy, but you'll actually be able to have an actual constructive dialogue on what's best to move forward in our culture.
Hey, I appreciate you guys coming through and speaking facts. With that, of course, we just definitely shouted out a couple of other podcasts here, but are there any other Black businesses or Black podcasts that you guys want to highlight before we sign off?
There's a lot, man, because you, man, we run a list of different podcasts and Black business highlights that we do. I do want to shout out, if you haven't already heard about it, this brother by the name of Covert Artist. He's a Hampton. I don't know if he's graduated yet because I couldn't tell from his social media or not, but he just, along with two other HBCU students, just got the were finalists for the HBCU spring challenge for Target, where they actually have 3 different designs. And on the episode for us that's about to come out, we kind of highlighted that he created this phenomenal dope hoodie that has We Rise on there. And like, just to see the creativity and the generation that's coming behind us, like the things that we couldn't, I promise you, I couldn't imagine where social media and the savviness of how to utilize that and creating your own personal brand was, how it is now versus when we came into it. If I knew half of what they are able to pick up in high school, let alone while they're in college, things could have been a lot differently. I'm blessed that I'm where I'm at now, but God bless the next generation because they are a generation that is fully integrated into technology and into social media. Like that's all that they've known for their entire life in a lot of cases. So shout out to him. I have to send you a list, man. I got so many. I could be here all day.
Yeah, I'll do one podcast and then one Black business. So the podcast is one that me and Brother X we've watched these boys since 2010, 2011, yes. Something like that. And then
he's in the game.
Yeah, and then they have a podcast. They're called the Comedy Trap House, and they are based off of the group Dormtainment, who used to do skits every Sunday at 7 p.m.
Used to love Dormtainment, man.
Oh yeah. So we listened to them, so I definitely shout them out. And then for the Black business, I wanted to shout out 2 ladies that both myself and Brother X know very well. Sabrina and Alexis, they are owners of Social Escapade. And basically, it's a travel group made by Black women to travel around, within a group setting so that you can have a party atmosphere, but at the same time, you're not alone. You know what I'm saying? Like when you go to these different resorts and different places, it's almost like Where's Waldo when you're looking for Black people? Like, oh, there's a Black person. I'm going to migrate towards them, right? but in this case, you're coming with over 100 people, and no matter what, you will find somebody that you're going to pretty much almost become best friends before the end of the trip, and you're going to come back with a story. Now, whether the story can be said to most people, whole nother conversation. But you're going to come back with a story at least, and you're going to have a good time. So shout them out. They haven't released this year's trip yet because this year is their 10-year anniversary. So hopefully they'll release it soon, and then just support them, ladies, man. Like we said, Black women running the world.
We're excellent. So with that, there are a couple of podcasts, as always, that I got to highlight. First and foremost, shout out to the anime podcast that I am a subscriber to. That is Worst Generation Podcast, Mic Check, Waifu, and Blanime Podcast. Definitely shout out to all of them. As always, y'all know that y'all have our love and support. Shout out to the Analytical Podcast, which is hosted every Tuesday night on Clubhouse and then recorded and streamed on all social media. Definitely shout out to them because I usually pop up every now and again, usually at the end, just to either give a quick hot take or just to, promote them and whatnot. Definitely shout out to them. They have supported me, so I definitely, it's only fair that I support them back. So definitely shout out to them. With that, let's see, of the other Black podcasts that I listen to, as always, the Session podcast with Jay and Trey. Definitely shout out to them. They are back in it. They are back to doing weekly podcasts. So definitely shout out to them. We about to get a joint episode with them as well. Inside the Mind of a Blurred, as always, shout out to 10 of y'all because I'm counting Skylar. So shout out to y'all. A podcast that I don't really talk about a lot. But definitely shout out is Earn Your Leisure. If you definitely haven't listened to Earn Your Leisure, definitely check them out. As far as learning about your the financial views, especially with Black men and Black women, definitely check them out if you haven't. Very informational podcast. And it's also, of course, mixed with pop culture because they keep it interesting. So definitely shout out to Earn Your Leisure. Shout out to Let's Talk Bro as definitely Geek World Podcast, Anime Lately Podcast. Dad Needs to Talk. Definitely shout out to my boy. I definitely appreciate it. I just lost my train of thought just like that. But definitely shout out to my boy Rob, aka Father Vash. I appreciate all the information that he has given me. Shout out to the Culture Marauders, and then shout out to the Hilltop Glove, especially for getting me hip to headliner. And for everybody else, oh, there's one more. Brutal Honesty with K. Renee, because that's my homie. I got to support her. So with that, I'm trying to think of if there are any other black businesses other than Cream Cosmetics that I need to highlight right now. But if I don't, of course, I might throw in an ad later. But anyway, guys, if there be nothing else on the top of everybody's mind, I think it is a good time to sign off. So before we do, gentlemen, please be sure that you plug your podcast. Go ahead.
All right, man. So again, we are the Truth and Transparency Podcast. We are 2/3 of it here this evening. This morning, wherever you are listening to it, man. I go by the name of Brother X. I'm Brother X 25 on social media. If you want to follow me, all of our social media is the TNT Pod 123 on Twitter. I'm working on getting more active on that, but I got a love-hate relationship with Twitter. The Truth and Transparency Pod on Instagram. You also have the Truth and Transparency Podcast on Facebook. And if you ever want to have any suggestions, want to hear more information about us, you can always email us at truthandtransparencypod123@gmail.com. Mr. Smith, am I missing anything?
No, you pretty much hit everything. And of course, there's always your tagline. If our podcast doesn't get any bigger than what it already is, we are always forever grateful.
And thank you to our phenomenal host. It's been a long time coming. I'm feeling very blessed to be able to be part of that. and to be able to uplift another Black man. And if we don't have to dribble a ball or rap on the mic to be able to do so. And it's good fellowship. It's good for the soul. And we just appreciate you. We definitely going to have you on our podcast, man. Listeners, you got to make sure you listen out for that, man. Because I think this is the beginning of something very beautiful, man. Because we're going to grow this thing one way or another. We all we got.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I definitely appreciate you guys coming through. It's always wonderful to have riveting conversations, especially with Black men. I definitely appreciate y'all for coming in and of course getting the mood right. And just for being a part of this podcast definitely means a lot to me. We will definitely do this again, not only on this podcast, but on y'all platform as well. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, and just a lot of good moments to share. So we will definitely be doing that for the foreseeable future. I hopefully next time, the culture scientist will be able to join us, at least on this platform. I cannot wait to actually get a chance to participate with her on you guys' platform. I'm ready for the shenanigans that will come. So
you think you are?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
You
got the hors d'oeuvres that you get at like the weddings, like to hold you over to the meal. You've gotten bits and pieces. You ain't got the whole meal.
Matter of fact, you got the mac and cheese recipe, but all you saw was the salt that was put in the salt bag. You ain't see the rest of the stuff that's put in.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it.
It can go left. It can go left real quick.
Hey, I'm ready. I've already been on a couple of podcasts that have gone extremely left. Shout out to Analytical, because there were certain things that I had to like look back and be like, wait, what? Okay. But yeah, it's happened before. So at this point, I'm not gonna be surprised. I'm just ready to grow my age with the laughter that I'm about to experience. That's all I'm gonna say.
I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah, with that, guys, let me go ahead and sign off. Be sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the Chaotic Culture Podcast. Be sure that you follow us and like us on Facebook at Chaotic Culture Podcast. You can follow us on social media. You can follow us on Instagram at Chaotic Culture Pod and follow us on Twitter at Chaotic_Culture. Be sure that you subscribe to our Patreon account. Go to patreon.com/Chaotic Culture Pod and become a patron on any of the 4 levels. It does not matter which one, whether it's $2, $3, $5, $20, $10. It does not matter. We still appreciate your support no matter what. You can follow me, Ked the Pro. That's K3D the Pro on all social media. You can follow my co-host Law on Instagram at L.JR_96, and you can follow him on Twitter at Law96_. You can follow Miss Nasa at _call me Nasa on all social media as well. With that, I think that about wraps it up. I'm trying to see if I missed anything. As always, I usually like to house clean just to be sure I didn't forget nothing. But I think I've covered everything. Definitely check us out if you have not. We appreciate it. And yeah, I guess that's all there is to it, because I thought I was missing something, but I guess I wasn't. So, and if I remember it, then obviously I might add it in later. So with that being said, guys, thank you for joining us for another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast. Until next time, folks, remember, be blessed, be safe. God is love. Deuces.
Peace out.
Bye.
I'm going to add that in too.
Look, it's chaos in these streets, so let's talk about it, please. Let's hold some conversation. You see where I'm coming from. Yes, it's so amazing. Go ahead, get comfortable. You can grab a seat, take a load off your feet. Yeah, welcome to the table. We don't tell no lies over here. This ain't no fable. We just live our lives over here. We ain't no angels. We just shine our light over here. We got the power. We just showing love over here. Cause everybody needs some, yeah. And we don't need a reason. Everybody needs some. And we don't need a reason, cause
we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Peace.